Hello and welcome to Culture on I-24 News. I'm Oded Grober. Thank you for joining me. Today on our show, we'll talk to the director of a new film about hummus. We'll hear about the origins of the Christmas song Silent Night. And talk about the wave of true crime documentaries. With fava beans or an egg served as masabacha or mashausha, hummus, many would say, is what binds the Middle East together, but it can also tear us apart, it seems. Director Oren Rosenfeld dedicated his first feature-length documentary to this tasty, tasty chickpea dip. And I'm very pleased to have him in the studio to discuss Hummus, the movie. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, I can think of a few reasons why to make a film about hummus, but I'm curious, why did you decide to make it?
Well, I live in Israel. I live in the Middle East. It's kind of a staple food here. I mean, you can't, basically you can't avoid it. Anywhere you go, if it's a wedding, a restaurant, there's always hummus on the table. Mm-hmm. It's something that, it follows you from day one. And as a food that here is such a popular dish, mm-hmm. We decided to share the wealth with the world and
show them what we got. Let's show a clip from the trailer. Come back.
I'm born in Israel, so I'm in Israel, but my roots are Palestinian. Sometimes I'm more Arabic than Christian, sometimes I'm more Christian than Arabic. Come on, Tim. This is my father, Samir. He's the owner of this restaurant, and he worked here 65 years.
I was working at a hummus place of a friend of mine, and he offered me to open a hummus place with his recipe. I was making the first part of hummus, tasting. It's was the best hummus I ever ate in my life.
So what did you choose to deal with in the film?
Right. I chose a few characters that represent, in my opinion, Israel. So we have a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, and we have a village of Abu Ghosh. And many people don't know that there's so many religions living here. Mm-hmm. And there's one thing that all my characters have in common, and that's hummus. If it's their love for hummus, if it's something they do on a daily basis, if it's something that occupies them, it's hummus. And at the moment, hummus is a superfood. And in America and Virginia, for instance, they're taking out all the crops of tobacco and they're planting hummus.
Yeah. It's definitely taking over. You mentioned the characters, and there are great characters in the film. It's very entertaining. I think a lot thanks to the characters some of the time, and each of them deserves their own film. Maybe. Did you know these are the people you wanted to interview, or did you go from one hummus place to another in Israel looking for characters, and these are the people you found?
Well, the nature of a documentary is that one thing leads to another. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened here. We started in Abu Ghosh, and I had a character there that I thought would be a main character, Abu Shukri. Mm-hmm. And he told me about this amazing woman that competed against 10 men from Akko. And I went to find her. And
you found a beautiful story there of a woman that really used hummus as a vehicle, I think, for liberation, for her own self-liberation. There are other interesting characters. There's Aluf Abir, who has a very interesting theory about hummus. Maybe you'd like to share it with us.
Right. So Aluf Abir is a character.
Yeah.
He, like you said, is worth a movie on his own.
Yeah.
But what he basically says is, there's one thing that we all have in common here is that we eat hummus for breakfast. And he calls it the stuff that looks like C4 explosives. So he claims this is what makes us all stupid. And he even has a song.
Yeah,
hummus makes you stupid. So.
Yeah. Part of that stupidity, one would argue, is the hummus wars that are waging between mostly Israel and Lebanon. Where are we on this at this point in time in the war?
Well, right now we're on the losing end, which is surprising because
this is the war for the Guinness World Record of largest hummus serving. right?
Exactly. So it's been going back and forth between Israel and Lebanon and between Abu Ghosh and Beirut. And as part of promotion for this film, I figured, okay, let's get all the characters together, and beat, the world record, make 15 tons of hummus.
Wow.
But unfortunately, Guinness had other ideas and refused to send
Really?
an adjudicator here.
That's unfortunate, but there's also an idea to make the largest falafel serving, so maybe we'll get some other titles. Now, one question that is the question of questions that the film doesn't deal with is which is the best hummus in Israel. I can understand why you didn't want to go there, but I'm going to put you on the spot right here and ask you, what do you think is the best hummus?
Well, thank you for putting me on the spot. Well, for me, hummus or any food is not about the food itself.
Yeah.
It's about the person that actually makes it and serves it to you. That's what makes a good hummus, in my opinion. And that's why I didn't want to get into it. It's the characters. You could see from all three of them their love for what they do, for their hummus, and therefore their hummus is good. And, it's a personal opinion. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you can't argue here which is a good hummus. Everybody has his favorite hummus.
Especially, you can't argue because the answer is known. It's Abu Hassan right next to our studio, which you haven't visited in the film. I don't know why, but maybe in the sequel. Last question, maybe. What's happening with the film now? Where can people watch it?
Right, so now it's doing a round of festivals, film festivals, and I believe the next one will be in the Berlin Jewish Film Festival and Potsdam. A few others are interested, so I'm hoping it will reach many countries and be seen.
To go watch the film. I enjoyed it a great deal, and I'm looking forward to all the sequels about falafel and the salad and French fries. Thanks, Olin, for coming in and telling us about it.
Thank you.
Okay. Silent Night was first sung in Austria almost 200 years ago, and the singers had no idea it would become the most famous Christmas carol in the world. More in this report.
Evoking the calm of a winter night, Silent Night is sung at Christmas all over the world, but nowhere with as much pride as the Salzburg region of Western Austria.
I'm afraid that people in America or France or in other countries do not really know where this song was performed the first time. They know the song, but people do not know where it comes from.
The song was written here almost 200 years ago. Priest Joseph Moore's lyrics were put to music by his friend Franz Xavier Gruber. The start of a tradition continued with gusto today.
Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht.
Created at a time of war and hardship in Europe, the carol was first performed on Christmas Eve.
People were very poor, they lost their employment, and they had to fight to survive. It describes also that the people should be good to one another, that they should forgive and that live together, and that they should try to understand one another.
Silent Night has been translated into more than 300 languages and recorded by singers from many music genres, from Bing Crosby to Miley Cyrus and even heavy metal groups. But one of the most unusual versions could be this recent one from Sweden, performed by goats.
Okay, that's something. In a moment, we'll hear about documentaries tackling true crime stories, but first, here's our cultural recommendation for today.
26-year-old Yayoi Kusama doesn't ever seem to slow down. She has been painting polka dots for over 6 decades, known as the creator of her unique universe of bright colors, spreading patterns covering the surfaces of paintings and sculptures and spreading across entire rooms. She is a flamboyant and singular figure in modern art, often wearing patterned colors that make her blend in with her art. Now the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art unfolds Kusama's life's work in a comprehensive and fascinating retrospective exhibition, the first of its kind in Scandinavia. The exhibition is a presentation of over 60 years of Kusama's works and features a variety of many artistic media in which she has worked, from visual art to performance, film, literature, and design. A special feature of this exhibition is the involvement of Kusama's work with fashion and design, including the artist's earliest unique fashion design from the 1960s. After Louisiana, the exhibition travels on to Hane Onstein Kunstcenter, Oslo, Norway, Moderna Museet Ark des Stockholm, Sweden, and HAM Helsinki Art Museum, Finland. The Scandinavian tour is supported by the Japan Foundation. The Louisiana Museum of Modern Art unfolds in Infinity, a retrospective dedicated to the work of Yayoi Kusama that will be on display until January 24th, 2016.
Lauren Izo is joining me now in the studio. Lauren, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. I hope you're not in a murderous mood.
It's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Well, today I want to talk to you about cereal, one of the best things that ever happened to me. So, no, but I'm completely serious.
Do you want to talk about that?
I would love to talk about it. So really, no, but seriously, before cereal came out, I never listened to any podcasts. I never really had a reason to. Nobody ever recommended any great podcasts to me.
I can recommend a few.
Okay, well, until cereal came out and everybody was talking about it. Like, it was insane. It was, hotter than any popular TV show. It was just what everyone was listening to.
Yeah, Serial, we should say, is a podcast came out late last year.
Exactly.
And it was, I think, 10 episodes, hour-long episodes dealing with a murder.
So it's a nonfiction story, and it's hosted by journalist Sarah Koenig, American journalist, and she basically delved into this case about Adnan Syed, who was accused of murder for murdering his girlfriend in high school and spent a lot of time in prison, and he's still in prison, but it just raised a lot of questions about law enforcement and how they dealt with the case, and now there's a lot of appeals happening because of this podcast.
Yeah. And now the second season of Serial.
So now finally the long-awaited second season just came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's a new episode coming out on Thursday, and it deals with the case of Bo Bergdahl. I'm sure you've heard of him. Mm-hmm. He was an American soldier who deserted his base, and he ended up getting captured by the Taliban. And he was captured for 5 years in captivity, and then there was a deal made for the U.S. government to trade 5 Taliban prisoners from Guantanamo Bay to release him. Mm-hmm. And they released him, and there was a huge welcoming ceremony for him to come home, and then eventually he was charged with deserting his base and misbehavior in front of the enemy is what they're calling it. So this podcast is really now dealing with a very current issue, which is quite different from the last season. Yeah. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it, because they're really updating it as the case comes out.
A big difference is that the case they dealt with in the first season was very relatively unknown case that they brought forward. And this, on the other hand, is something that was dealt with a great deal. Are they bringing something new to the team?
Well, they are bringing something new because they actually have these exclusive phone interviews of Bergdahl himself, and he hasn't spoken to any other media other than these phone interviews. So it really brings a lot of insight into the case about what was going through his mind, about his experience, living in a black room with no light for 5 years. It's insane. So it's interesting from a lot of perspectives to hear about what happened.
Definitely interesting. Now, Serial, when it came out, as you said, it became a huge hit, and it spawned all sorts of other creations as well. One of them just came out on Netflix as well.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So, Making a Murderer is the latest Netflix craze. It's a 10-episode docuseries that was just released, and they're calling it the Serial of television. Mm-hmm. So it deals with the case of Stephen Avery, and he was accused of raping a woman and then spent 18 years in prison, and then they proved from the DNA samples that he actually didn't do it.
Yep.
And then he made
18 years,
and then he made a whole case suing the law enforcement for $36 million, and then 2 years later he was put back in jail for murder, where he sits today.
That's really the highlights of the story. They're taking their time telling it, though, as we said, the 10 hour long parts.
Yeah.
Let's watch a moment from it.
Stephen Avery spent 18 years in prison for something he didn't do.
18 years.
18 years. DNA had come through indicating that he had not committed the crime.
Law enforcement officers realized that they had screwed up big time. We were getting ready to bring a lawsuit.
It's $36 million. Manitowoc County itself and the sheriff and the DA would be on the hook for those damages.
They're not handing that kind of money over to Steve Avery. I did tell him, be careful. They are not even close to being finished with you.
Do we have a body or anything yet?
I don't believe so.
We have Stephen Avery in custody, though.
Are you kidding me?
Incredible story,
Really?
Really quite amazing. I think it's worth listening to. Speaking of other good podcasts,
Yeah.
Radio Lab had an episode about it a while ago. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We're done. Join us again tomorrow. Bye-bye.